Jocelyn.
And you're listening to another episode of Why Can't We Talk About It?
Yay.
Yay. Just wanted to say Happy New Year to all our listeners. This is the first episode of the new year of 2023. And I just want to welcome everyone to the podcast. And I wanted to just kind of kick things off for our first episode of the new year and just ask Jocelyn, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm glad that we made the decision to take a break. I think it's very important to reset, recharge. If everybody listened to our last episode about New Year's resolutions, if you haven't, definitely go back and give it a listen. I like to take time to reflect and get set up for the new year. So feeling good. How about you?
I'm doing good as well. It is definitely nice to take some time off, recharge. Over the break, I got myself some massages, just trying to use up a little bit of benefits. Thank you to my work. And also just seeing family, ate a lot of food. So that's definitely something that I enjoy. But mostly it's, I think, just to have some time with family, recharge, and get ready for the new year. And I think that's definitely been very helpful. So I do appreciate a bit of a break.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and on top of that, just to kick things off again, do you have any recos for me this week?
I do. It's not a happy recommendation, so I'm going to start with that. So if you want to start the new year in kind of like an optimistic or energized mood, you might want to skip this one. But at some point, if you are ready to settle down with a good read, yes, it's another book.
Okay.
I would strongly recommend the book Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. So this book was everywhere last year. It's really recognizable. It had a red cover and like two chopsticks holding noodles making the letter H.
Mm-hmm.
I picked it up because of that. I just kept seeing it over and over again, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. I didn't know too much about the book before I started it, and I was floored. So it's a memoir, and the woman who writes it, I think she's exactly my age, or she's around my age, and she's also mixed. So she's half Korean and half American, and she talks about what that's like growing up in a small town in America. And it's the story of that, also her relationship with her mother, and very sadly, her mother passes away. So it's about that, which is why it's very heavy, but it's very honest, and it's just a very compelling story. So there's a trigger warning there that it deals with some sad subject matter, but it's beautifully written, and I definitely recommend it.
Okay, thank you. And this is just for my personal curiosity. How long did it take you to finish this book?
Oh, I binged it, so I read it in a weekend.
Oh, geez. Okay. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so well written.
Okay.
How about you?
Well, mine is not a book. So I recently watched, and this is the reco, Minari. Are you aware of that movie?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. So when I watch movies with Andrea, we have a list of movies that's for just like it's like for fun movies, any movie we could think of or we come across. But she also keeps a list of the ones that make it to the Oscars, the ones that are Best Picture. So we have that going back a few years, and we try to watch one of those every once in a while. And so Minari is one of the ones, I believe it was 2021. And I think the description of the movie is a Korean-American family moves to an Arkansas farm in search of its own American dream. Amidst the challenges of this new life in the strange and rugged Ozarks, they discover the undeniable resilience of family and what really makes a home.
I remember, I just looked it up while you were talking about it, and I remember seeing trailers for this, and I really wanted to see it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it from, I guess, the point of view that it is almost like in a way, immigration story, sort of, where basically, yeah, you're an Asian family, you're going to a place where you're definitely a minority, and you're trying to make things work. And this is a family where there is, mother, father, a young son and daughter, and some of the like intricacies of just having to deal with life in that place and time. And I believe this was done in the 80s. It takes place in the 80s, I mean. And so it's even more like a time where you don't have social media, no internet, you don't have that access to all that information. And also the little boy, I was like, oh, I can kind of see how it was like for me living in that time, and just seeing your parents kind of trying to make ends meet, by the same time trying to make dreams work.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was very nicely done. And so that's why I think it's a reco for me for this episode.
Thank you. It's weird how our recos are kind of similar-ish. Loosely.
Coincidence, right?
Yeah.
Quite a coincidence. Yeah. Okay. So moving on, I think we're going to just kind of bring up what the topic is for this episode. And the topic is the relationship between mental health and cleaning. And I wanted to kind of give a quick background and context of why this topic even came to be. It was something that I put into Jocelyn and I's ideas list for what kind of topics we want to talk about for the podcast. And this one just came up because I was just thinking about how, at least for me, I know that when I am feeling good, usually the space around me, especially where I live, tends to be cleaner and more organized. And it just occurred to me, like, oh, I wonder if there's some kind of reason behind it, or whether or not there is some kind of relationship between that and how I feel. And so I know that prior to starting therapy in general, it sometimes, like mood-wise, it could be a bit up and down for me. And there were times where when things maybe weren't going the best, when I was doing that thing where I was numbing or distracting myself, I would be kind of distracting myself, doing things, and letting certain things such as cleaning up and organizing kind of fall behind. And I noticed that I would kind of just not want to I don't feel like doing laundry, or I don't feel like cleaning up, or I may not want to do dishes right away. And there were times where I would leave it for a while, and then eventually I'd be like, okay, fine, it's a bit messy, I really need to do something. And I did find that those things tend to creep up more if I wasn't doing my best. However, when I was feeling better, especially with the help of therapy and just dealing with the topics that we talked about in this podcast, but the more I think I worked on myself, the more I found myself wanting to keep things nice and clean. So I would spend more time cleaning up my place, and that transition just made me think about what that does for my own mental health and what the relationship is. And another thing that I also thought about too was many years ago through my workplace, I don't know if Jocelyn, you did this, but I did something called, I think it's called Junior Achievement. It's like a volunteer, what was it?
It's a volunteer program where we could go and help, I think, depending on the program, grade 8s. And as professionals, we could go in, and I said that with air quotes, we could go in and help teach a class about like career planning and budgeting and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Like a mentorship kind of thing.
Yeah, like a mentorship. It's I remember doing that. It was like a one-day thing. And I remember when I did it, I remember going into a class, I think it was a grade 5-6 split. And basically we spent a whole day there just kind of giving these kids an idea of what it's like to, one day go out into the workforce and talk to them about budgeting and things like that. However, I remember when I was in that class, in the middle of one of the times we got to take a break, I was chatting with the teachers. And I don't remember how it came to this, but he goes, if you want to see how well these kids are going to do, take a look inside their desk. And I'm like, why? He goes, the ones that are going to have the most organized and clean desks are the ones who always do better school-wise and grade-wise. And the ones who are super cluttered, they don't do as well. And honestly, when I first heard that, I was like, well, that sounds like BS to me. That doesn't make any sense. Like, what does that matter? Why does that matter to your grades? But I think about that even for myself, and just an example of what I gave earlier about when a person is doing well versus not and how they are organized and clean. I do believe there is some kind of relationship there. And that was the reason why I thought, you know what? I wonder if there's people out there who would want to know about that, and even just to kind of bring it up for awareness. But also, I think I just wanted to talk about it because maybe my way of doing things and Jocelyn's way of doing things are different. So that's the reason why this topic came up, and that's why we're talking about it today.
I definitely can relate to a lot of what you're saying. I will go back to that comment that the teacher made. I think while it might be true, I don't think that defining success by being good in school, getting good grades is necessarily a marker of anything. As we know, the school system doesn't work for everybody. People learn in different ways. So people who might have a messy desk and not do well grades-wise could be absolutely brilliant. So just putting that out there. But yeah, I definitely feel similarly to you, where I think that having a clean and tidy space is very helpful for my mental health. And I've seen articles written about the topic. I know you're going to talk about that a little bit too. I'm also an avid TikTok user, and I see TikToks of people who post while they're depressed or their mental health isn't so good, their space gets very messy, and they post TikToks of the cleanup. And I think they do this. It's a way of motivation for themselves. There's always very supportive comments. It's very eye-opening for people. I think it makes sense. You know, when you're depressed, one of the symptoms is just a feeling of being disinterested, just not being able to do even the basic tasks. And something as simple as doing the dishes can seem completely overwhelming. So it's very easy for a space to become disorganized. For me personally, I very much need an uncluttered, tidy space to live in. So growing up, living with my parents, that was kind of a struggle for me, but I don't think I realized it until I went back home and until my family came to visit me. So living at home, my mom, clutter doesn't bother my mom the way it bothers me. Like, I think I maybe should have brought this up in therapy, because I think I might be on the side of it's a compulsion, because I would go through these tears where I would be in a maybe not so great mood, and I'd go into the pantry to look for something, and I would just be like, this is so disorganized. And I would get fixated on taking everything out and decluttering and reorganizing it all so that it was nice and tidy. And it would stay that way for like, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks, and it would go back to the chaos. My mom is like, you know, there's a method to her madness.
Yeah.
But for me, it's not like that at all. And now that I live in my own place, I keep saying that my mental health has been so good for the past year. And I wonder if part of that is because my space is set up and maintained exactly the way that it works for me. When my family came to visit me this past summer, we rented an Airbnb on the beach, and it was a very nice place, but it wasn't huge. So with 6 adults, 2 dogs, there's dog toys everywhere, there was luggage. My mom pointed out to me that I was tidying all the time. Like, I'd come in, everybody would just like chill and relax, and I'd have to like line up the shoes. I'd be like, okay, everybody kick their shoes around, so I need to line it up. I would gather all the dog toys up and put them back into their bag. Like, I'd clear off the counter. I hate stuff on the kitchen counter and bathroom counter. Like, Azim is a little bit looser. Like, he can leave things on the counter. It doesn't bother him as much. I cannot do that. I actually wake up every morning and like do a sweep. Like if he was up the night before, like had a midnight snack or whatever, I'm like, I can't deal with this. I can't look at it. I need to have it cleaned off. So I think that's why I'm like, I don't know if it's necessarily a healthy habit. It works for me, but my mom was like, you need to chill. But it helps me so much. And I wonder if it's about having control, you know, like that's very much a part of my personality is I have a lot of trouble letting go. I like to be the owner, the organizer for so many things. You know this about me with having worked with me, that it's just, that's just part of my personality. So maybe it's an easy thing to control, right? Keeping a tidy space. So I wonder if that's why I do it.
Okay, great segue, because I wanted to just kind of read something in regards to some of the stuff I found online, just kind of talking about this. And I think your point of control, I think, is one that kind of comes up.
Ooh,
often.
Okay.
So let me just kind of throw a few things in here. So some of the themes that I kind of have found in my own research is that cleaning or the lack of cleaning can have a direct impact on mental health. And so clutter may lead to decreased focus, confusion, and tension. And so when people feel like their life is out of control or they are struggling with some uncertainties, cleaning can be a way to assert some control in their life. And so cleaning gives people a sense of mastery and control over their environment. Another theme that I found is that clutter and disorganization can be really distracting and make it hard to focus or complete other projects, and you can start to feel stuck in a rut. So if you're feeling an urge to clean and declutter when you're stressed, your mind and body is probably looking for a way to bring some order to your environment. And so you kind of came to that conclusion on your own. That is a theme that I've definitely read online. And I think when I think about that, even for myself, yes, I live my own now, but when I was living at home with my family, the space that which I had, I guess, control would be my room. And I do remember that every once in a while, when I was still living at home, I found myself wanting to just take a couple of those big garbage bags and just throw out a bunch of stuff, like maybe once or twice a year. I just found like I was accumulating things. There was too much clutter and I just need to get rid of it. And I would feel better. And not only that, every once in a while, I would move things around. So I'd be like, oh, I don't want my desk on this end anymore. I'm going to move it somewhere else. My bed, I'm going to move it, face a different direction, just to kind of, I almost feel like it refreshes the room. And I think it refreshes me. And so I think there is something to that where it's like control and just kind of like make you feel better. And I guess when we talk about control and the clutter, I guess one thing I do feel like asking, and I'm curious for you, is you said like, oh, like I can't deal with that. What does that mean? Especially given our podcast is, you know, feelings and emotions. What do you feel when you're saying like, oh, I can't deal with that? What's going on there? Are you able to articulate that?
Yeah, it means that I can't move past it. Like I cannot focus on the next part of my day or relax or whatever until the mess on the table is addressed or the shoes are lined up or the trash has been taken out, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel a sense of peace.
Right.
Until the space is clean.
Do you feel stressed?
I don't know that I'd say it's that far.
Okay.
And I think maybe previously, like if I was living at my parents' house and like I said, I'd like already maybe be in a bad mood or in the bad old days of commuting and like just not generally being in a good space, then it'd be easy to set me off. But when you just read that piece about control and like when somebody's in like an uncertain environment, like cleaning helps return a sense of control and normalcy. I don't feel like things are uncertain or stressful right now. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's kind of a red flag for me that I still feel the compulsion to be this way. But I don't think I'm alone. Like, there are so many people who are obsessed with shows like The Home Edit, right? Have you heard of The Home Edit on Netflix?
No, I would not.
Okay, these two women started a company based off of organization. It's this show where they go into people's homes, celebrities included, like they've done the Kardashians. They will do a room, like a closet or a garage, and they will just completely tidy and reorganize it. They have a team. Like they are able to hire a team. They have their own container line, and people just watch them organize. Or like Marie Kondo, right?
Mm-hmm.
People love seeing her go in there and like take a messy space and change somebody's life by helping them spark joy.
Yeah.
So I think people like it. Like I think people universally, maybe not universally, but a lot of people feel this way, where if you have a sense of tidiness and organization, you feel better. But I don't want to generalize, because going back to what I started with, where I'm like defending the messy kids, you know, the kids who have like messy desks. And like my mom is another good example of that, because she's so sentimental. She keeps things that I made when I was young, like on her dresser still. And I'm like, why do you have that? Some people can just live in that and it works for them. I want to say that's rare, but I have nothing to base that off of.
Look, we're not experts in this field.
We're not experts at anything. We'll say that.
I'm an expert at eating food. Anyways.
Me too.
Yeah. But what I want to say with that is, yeah, with the compulsion thing, like, is it a compulsion? I don't know. It could be. Right? Like, what makes it a compulsion? Like, I did read in some of the stuff that I was looking up too. It's like, yeah, there are a lot of things that could be going on, but obviously compulsion, if that is a problem, that is something to look into. But even when I was reading it, I'm like, it's not that definitive of what makes it a compulsion, in a sense where I think one of the things I read was, yes, if somehow you can't go out and hang out with your friends because you haven't finished cleaning up, maybe that's a bit of a compulsion, or it's affecting your work, things like that. But I don't know. I do think it's a difficult thing because, I mean, I grew up in a home where people like to keep stuff. And when I ask them, why don't we throw these things away? The response I get back is, well, you don't know when you're going to need it. I feel like in my conversations with people in general, that has happened, or that seems to be a pattern and theme that other people have kind of encounter themselves, where they're told like, oh, but you don't know when you're going to need this one thing. And even if I revisit that 10 years later and that thing is still there and hasn't been used, I still get told the same thing. And so I wonder if there's more to it sometimes than just like, oh, it's sentimental. Maybe. Mm-hmm. But at what point does it become more than that? But I want to say, like, I am sympathetic to people where if there is something else going on, then yeah, it's hard. Because I look at those shows like Hoarders, and it used to be, so there was a time when I used to look at it, I'm like, how can you live like this? Like, how can you live in a home where it's just full of stuff and you can't even, there's no walkway for you? How can you live like that? And I used to be very judgmental, because I'm just looking at what I see on face value. However, a bit of reading and just kind of trying to understand a little bit more, I go, you know what? I think there are things going on within the person, the individual, or groups of people, or I go, you know what? I think probably needs help.
Absolutely.
And there's probably way more like emotionally within them that is causing the behavior of hoarding, or just not wanting to get rid of things. And I look at that a bit differently. So if anything, if I see that now, I would go, oh, this person, I think needs help. And whether or not people recognize that. But I do think I was a person who would judge very quickly when I saw that. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people do that, even though it's more like it's just fascinating and it's on TV and you're like, whoa, how can someone do this? But I think it's just a bit of a looking at it with a different perspective. But I do think there's a spectrum of that to go from people who are like, I need to be super clean, to someone being like, I don't want you to touch anything. And then everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying there's a right or wrong, but I think we should be mindful of, there is a lot of different ways of doing things out there, and try to be sympathetic about it.
Yeah, totally.
However, I want to also note that for any listeners where, if you're listening to this and whether you relate for yourself or as we're talking, you're like, oh, I think I know somebody like this. I mean, I don't know what the solution is or what to do necessarily, but I think it's just to, again, bring awareness. But I know that for myself, if one of the things that I did when I was having issues where I was like, yeah, you know what, my place is a bit messy, and sometimes if I leave it long enough, it just feels like it's a huge task. And so one way that I wanted to just name and kind of get that out there is for me to help myself was to just kind of start small. Sometimes if I just look at my entire place and go, oh, I need to clean up everything, all I want to do is take a nap because it just feels like it's too much. But if I just break it down, it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll just start with the sink, clean up all the dishes. And then once that's done, then I can think about something else. I find breaking things down to little pieces is a good way for me. And if people need ideas, I think that's one way to start things off. I don't know, Jocelyn, do you have things that come to your mind if somebody was to ask you like, oh, what do you think I should do if I'm doing that?
One thing I do to make the time pass for things that I don't particularly like tidying up, like folding laundry or doing the dishes, that kind of thing, I like listening to podcasts. Listen to us. Put on Why Can't We Talk About It and get your chores done. But yeah, I do find that doing something you enjoy, if you can, like finding a way to bundle something good with something not so fun is great. Some people I know put on TV or shows or YouTube in the background, and that helps pass the time. It's a good kind of distraction while you're doing something not fun. But yeah, I like to pop my AirPods on and listen to podcasts, listen to an audiobook, and that's very helpful.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I'm curious, and I will respond, but I want to ask Jocelyn first. Can you tell, in the space of talking about like organizing, cleaning, and in a way, I guess it's like home chores, tell me one chore that you hate the most and one that you're like, you know what, I actually enjoy that, if there is one.
Okay.
What comes to mind?
I don't actually hate anything.
Oh, okay.
A lot. Like, there's nothing I'm like, ugh, that's so annoying. I think if I had to choose, it would be vacuuming as the one that I don't like to do. But I have to say, having a handheld cordless one makes it a lot easier. Another one is scrubbing the shower or scrubbing the tub. That's so annoying.
Like or dislike? Oh, dislike.
Dislike.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. There's so much surface area. I like to like really get in there, so it takes a long time. Dislike. I don't mind doing the rest of the bathroom. Like, when we do it pretty often, so it's not like gunky or gross.
Yeah.
It's just, spray down, scrub down. It's fine. And then if there's something that I don't mind doing, I would say cooking. It takes a long time because I meal prep.
Right.
But it's the easiest one for me to get done while listening to something because I really feel like I'm accomplishing something, You take all the ingredients and you turn it into something delicious.
Right.
Get a sense of satisfaction from that. I finish a lot of podcasts and make progress on my French listening skills that way.
And it's probably nice because then you get to eat it.
That too.
There's an additional reward after making the food.
Exactly. How about you?
Okay, so I think the thing that I dislike the most is mopping.
Okay.
So I don't mind Swiffering the floor, vacuuming the floor. But for some reason, once it gets to like the mopping stage, which is not even often, and I don't know how often other people do it, but every once in a while when it comes time for that, for some reason, I'm just like, this just feels like a lot extra work.
What kind of mop do you use?
It's still using the Swiffer, the hand.
The wet jet?
Not even that one. It's the one where you just kind of like take individual like wet sheets and you just put it onto the Swiffer mop.
Why is that different than just Swiffering for you? Like, why do you dislike that more?
Because I think when you just Swiffer and you're just trying to like get the dust off the floor, it's a much easier glide. But for some reason with the mopping, it doesn't go as smoothly for me. Maybe I'm doing it wrong.
What? I thought you were going to say having to put the mop in the bucket and wring it out. I get that. And I was going to recommend, we got a steam mop when we got Kylo. And
Okay.
we vacuum and mop quite often. He doesn't shed, but having a pet, we clean pretty often. And I love it. It's so satisfying putting a steam mop on the floor. It's great. But that's definitely a heavier push than the wet Swiffer. So I don't know if I'd recommend it to you.
I don't know if going from a wet Swiffer thing to a steam mopping will be somehow any better. Anyways, the point is that just for some reason doesn't work best for me.
Okay, it sucks for you.
Yeah, I think the one that I actually am most okay with is probably just doing laundry in general. Obviously, I don't have to do a lot of work. It's just mostly putting the clothes in, sorting them out, and drying it. But there's something about just getting like clean clothes out, or sometimes where I will do all the towels. And then when it's being dried, I'll time it so that I can kind of come out of the shower and it'll be ready. It's this nice and warm towel. I'm like, oh, this is nice. So that's something that I'm okay with. But yeah, I don't know. Mopping, maybe I should think and look into that too. I wonder why that's such a big deal for me. But it's a pain in the ass. I have one friend who he knows who he is, John. But he hates doing dishes.
John's getting called out.
Yeah, but he knows it. We know this for a long time. But he hates doing dishes. But then other people are like, no, dishes are fine. Like, I think I'm okay with dishes in general. It does feel nice to kind of get it nice and clean and get the sink clean too. But yeah, he's a friend of mine who just hates doing dishes.
My old roomie used to hate doing dishes too. She was like, yeah, she cooked everything when we lived together and I cleaned and I was totally fine with it. But she really didn't like doing the dishes.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder why that is. When Andrea and I are around, typically the way we work is if someone is cooking, the other person will clean or do the dishes, I mean, and then vice versa. So that way it feels more evened out kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how it is for you and Nazim?
Well, when I cook, I clean as I go. It's probably not a surprise to you. I get it. I have my mise en place all set up and time everything and make 3 dishes for the week that we can have. And then we usually supplement with like prepared salads and then sometimes a prepared like salmon from Costco or something. And so as I cook, I am cleaning dishes because we don't have a huge place. So I need to reuse some of the dishes while I'm cooking. And then, yeah, it's not like we cooked. If I cooked dinner, then just for that night, yeah, Azim would clean or vice versa. But no, when I'm meal planning, I just get it all done. That's probably why it takes me so long. This is riveting content, our cleaning habits. I hope everybody's enjoying this.
I mean, for listeners, I would say leave us what your methods are because I'm curious how people do things. This is not a topic where people just kind of go around and be like, hey, tell me how you do your cleaning and cooking. I'm like, but I do wonder, like, do people do things differently or
it's adulting. There's no manual. It would have been nice to know, right? Because every family is different. For my family, my apo, which is my grandma, cooked for us. So I saw my mom cook growing up when we lived outside of Canada. Mm-hmm. But at home, like my apo lives 5 minutes away and we just go get our food from her. So I didn't really see her meal plan and prepare food. And so when I was out on my own here, I was like, wow, I'm 30 and I need to learn how to do this for the first time. So I do find it interesting. So I'm going to put a post on Instagram where I mention this episode and mention what we each like and dislike. And I'd love to hear from the listeners what their likes and dislikes are and why, or maybe you don't know why. Maybe you can't, like, you're like Danny and you're like, I don't know why pushing a Swiffer wet mop is so tiring to me.
Yeah.
But that's a good plug for the Instagram. If you want to go leave a comment and follow us there, we would love it. It's at Why Can't We podcast.
Yeah. And if there are questions on there too, we can try and answer that on the podcast as well. Okay. So one other thing I wanted to kind of bring up, and I believe this was from our New Year's Eve episode where Jocelyn, just been passing comment, mentioned that for those who don't know, we use I guess it's like an online website program for organizing our podcast, our ideas, our thoughts, what we want to do. It's called Notion, and it has these different, I guess you can say, cards, and you can just put things in and you can move them around to organize. And Jocelyn mentioned that, she uses that for other things in her life, including groceries. I believe that's the one thing you said. And I would like to ask Jocelyn more about that, if she's going to elaborate, because when it comes to grocery shopping, this is Danny's method. I need things. Where's my pen? Where's my stick-it note? Let me just write down what I need. And then I crumple it up and I put it into my pocket and I make my way to the grocery store. And I just take out that list and I just kind of walk around and find those items. And then I go home. However, I'm going to assume Jocelyn has, because of the face she's making.
My eyes are bugging out of my head.
She has a meticulous process that I would like to hear about, if you don't mind sharing with us.
Okay, so this is what I do. I look up recipes that I also keep track of in Notion, of ones that have worked and are easy go-tos. But we like to try new things and change it up. So I choose a few recipes for the week, like I said, 2 to 3. And then based on those recipes, which I keep linked at the top of my grocery list, I put the ingredients down. And my grocery list is separated into different sections: produce, dairy, meat, canned/jarred, frozen, dried, junk food, and miscellaneous. And then that way, when I'm walking through the grocery store, I know that from the produce section, I need XYZ, and then I can move on so that I'm not dashing back and forth and wasting time in the grocery store, forgetting that I needed peas when I'm in the pasta aisle, for instance. Okay. So yes, I find Notion very helpful to keep track of that. I have a Notion card for my shopping list. So this is particularly helpful around the holidays for online gifts that I got from my family. I tracked what I got everybody and then also what packages I was still expecting to be delivered and the tracking number to make sure I didn't forget.
Yeah.
I have a Notion card for my workout agenda because I do split it up between strength training, cardio, different days. I have a goals Notion card. I have a travel planner for my trips. I feel like I feel like I shouldn't go on, but yeah, my life is very organized, and not all of it is lists, right? So for instance, I have a Notion card for my blog and my newsletter, and that's done with different cards. So like Danny said, it's sort of like a chart that's like planning, doing, done, and ideas, and then you can schedule things. So some things are done in a list form, some things are done in a calendar form. Yes, I watch the home edit and I'm like, I wish I had done that.
Yeah.
I think I'd be a very good like life organization person.
Okay. That's pretty cool. I just was curious how that even looked like.
COO. I'm going to be a chief operations officer one day somewhere.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I was just curious. I wasn't sure how that worked. I know you had mentioned it. I was okay, but what does that even look like? So
it's free. Notion is free. This is not sponsored. Please sponsor me, Notion. I'm your biggest fan. But yeah, it's very helpful. Don't you find it so helpful for the podcast?
Yes, I do. It never occurred to me that that's something where I would use that for personal use. I mean, I'll think about it to see if that's something that's It makes sense for me. Obviously, it makes sense for you. And I'm sure it's going to make sense for other people who hear it, be like, oh, I'm looking for something that'll help organize my life. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it's just could be a personality thing too. I'm just like, oh, I just kind of play by ear and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if that could be better. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, so I think that's most of the items I had for this topic for today. Just talking about, again, the relationship between mental health and cleaning and organizing. Jocelyn, do you have any other items that you could think of?
No, that's it. This was very interesting. I really liked hearing about your experience, and thank you for sharing some of the tips that you found and making this a safe space for anybody. There's not a right way. There's just your own way. And maybe we can try new things that might work out better to improve our mental health, or maybe you're already doing what works for you, and that's great.
That is true. Yes, absolutely. I would be curious to hear what others have to say. No judgment. I just kind of want to know what other people do. So, okay. So thank you so much. Thank you to our listeners. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them on our Instagram account. And I just want to thank everybody for listening to Why Can't We Talk About a podcast, and look forward to a great 2023 with all of you. Thank you so
Yay.
much, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.